Hello everyone, welcome back to Foot Forecast. In today's video, I'm going to be discussing if Arne Slot should be sacked as Liverpool manager and how this video is going to work. I'm going to start with some reasons why I think he should be sacked, then some reasons why I don't think he should be sacked, and then either way I'm going to discuss some potential managers to replace Arne Slot at the end. So starting off with the reasons why he should be sacked, well, Liverpool have underperformed all season and specifically in the league, and right now they're at risk of missing out of Champions League football. They're currently 5th place, which is definitely not good enough for Liverpool, and it just hasn't improved at any point this season. And if anything, Liverpool have regressed. Without the good start, which came from sort of last minute goals at the start of the season, Liverpool would be a mid-table side, and they would probably currently be sitting in a position where they couldn't even get into the Champions League next season. And since then, Liverpool have just been an inconsistent side and they haven't delivered good back-to-back performances. And the in-game management from Slot has been poor, conceding so many late goals. And changes haven't made a positive effect at all for Liverpool this season. They've often made them worse. And often Slot's solution is, when Liverpool is struggling for a goal, is to just shove a whole lot of attackers on without a plan, it appears. And Liverpool are just so fragile as a side this season. You always think they're going to concede late on, and it was so inevitable that they conceded that late goal against Spurs. And this is a real problem that Slot has to change if he is to remain as Liverpool manager, because it's just nowhere near good enough. Another problem is that the tactics are unclear. Either they're not listening to Slot or they're not working. It's a problem either way. If they're not listening to Slot, then that's a massive problem, because it means they're not trusting the manager anymore. And a lot of Liverpool's sort of moments of quality this season have come from sort of individual moments, like a Dominic Szoboszlai free kick, or they've come from sort of mistakes from the opponent. Which, look, I don't mind to an extent. You want to be causing the opponent to make mistakes, but you also need to have an ability to break down sides, which Liverpool haven't been nearly as effective as they should have been this season, especially considering they bought players like Florian Wirtz and Hugo Ekitike. And Liverpool aren't causing sides to actually make enough mistakes. Liverpool haven't been pressing nowhere near enough, and that's actually been shown by the fact that they've been outworked by 27 out of 31 teams this season. That's a disgrace for a Liverpool side, and it's that lack of energy and the fitness concerns which really bothers me with Liverpool right now, because in the past, under Klopp, that's what Liverpool was all about. It was about fitness, it was about energy, and even last season when Liverpool were successful, it had that element of the press. But it's just disappeared this season, sort of ripping up what Klopp did create. And the other problem with Liverpool is they're just so uninspiring to watch. You could fall asleep right now watching a Liverpool game so easily. In the past, you would have never said this, and this is a real problem because Liverpool aren't using Anfield anymore like they did in the past. The atmosphere in the ground has definitely got worse this season. Teams are less scared about travelling to Anfield. They're more confident about getting something from there. And that's also because of the style of football. And that's because of the lack of pressing and energy, and also how uninspiring it is to watch. Liverpool have also this season only scored 40 goals in 31 Premier League games. That is a real low for a side like Liverpool, which you would expect a lot higher figures. And if you're only scoring 40 goals in 31 games, then you can't be conceding too many. But that's another problem for Liverpool. Liverpool have conceded 35 goals this season, defensively fragile, and 11 of those coming from set pieces. I'd also like to add, I actually don't think Liverpool have been an elite side since the start of 2025, despite Liverpool being champions last season. I thought they were excellent in the first half of the season, the best team in the world at that stage. But in the second half of the season, Liverpool weren't a great side, so I'm more looking at issues that I think have existed for 15 months, not sort of 9 months, and that's another concern for me at Liverpool. And overall, Liverpool have regressed hugely from last season, and pretty much every player, apart from Dominic Szoboszlai, has got worse under Arne Slot as manager. So now let's discuss some reasons why you could potentially keep him as the manager. Well, he did win a Premier League last season, which I think is still worth talking about. I think people do disrespect Slot when they say it's more down to Jurgen Klopp. And look, Jurgen Klopp definitely contributed a bit to the Premier League last season, but Slot deserves credit. he got the best out of that squad. He turned Cody Gakpo into actually quite a good Premier League winger, and everyone moans about him this year, but last year he was the second top goal scorer in the Premier League and he was playing well. He also moved Ryan Gravenberch into the six, which made Liverpool a way better side after failing to get Martin Zubimendi. So you've got to give credit to Slot for doing this, and I think this is something worth considering. You've also got to consider that players just haven't stepped up for Arne Slot this season, like Mo Salah, but I think that is also due to Slot. Not as much in maybe Salah's case, but I think a lot of the players have struggled because of Slot being the manager, and injuries have been a factor this season. I don't think this is something worth denying. Injuries to the likes of Alexander Isak, the fullback problems, have made it more difficult for Liverpool this season. But I don't think it's only Liverpool that have suffered injuries. There's a lot of other sides that have had a clear injury problems, so it's not something that I'm going to consider hugely. And he has also tried to change the system to a more sort of controlled playing style, but this has clearly not worked. So I don't think it's a very valid excuse for why you wouldn't sack Arne Slot, but I think it is worth something noting. I think something definitely worth noting is despite spending a lot in the summer, Slot didn't get a centre-half. And look, I think Liverpool would have been a better side if you added a Mark Gahey into the squad this season. And if you added a winger that could have played ahead of Gakpo or Mo Salah, and you maybe signed a different fullback other than Frimpong because he doesn't really work in this four at the back system. But there's still so much quality in that Liverpool squad where I don't think that's a hugely valid excuse. I still think Liverpool would have struggled this season, and he probably wouldn't have got the best out of those players based off what we've seen so far. There is also a risk with sacking Arne Slot. Liverpool could get worse if they made this decision. And I think the last thing to consider is what happened over the summer with Jota obviously passing away. And we don't really know how that's affected the squad. So that's something I'm not going to measure in terms of how much it's actually affected Liverpool. And this may be a reason why Liverpool decide to keep Arne Slot because of what happened over the summer. And they think he's a good manager, but it's just been difficult because of that situation. But my final verdict is I would sack Arne Slot, and I think it's quite obvious. I've got a lot more evidence to suggest he's not been good enough. As I said, I think he's regressed in so many areas this season. I think you're better off going with a different option in the next summer. And I'm also not convinced that I would trust Slot with sort of another 200, sort of 300 million pounds in the summer, which Liverpool may need to spend to rebuild this summer, after the announcement that Mo Salah's leaving and probably other players will leave as well. What I would add to this is I think the most likely outcome is that Liverpool sack him at the end of the season. I don't see them bringing in an interim, but I do think that would actually be a decent idea. Maybe get a manager in that may be able to just get a bit more out of the squad. It doesn't have to be the best sort of tactical manager, but just someone that can maybe inspire the players a bit more, which I think is the best idea. I think Liverpool are better off getting an interim and then allowing a full reset at the start of the next season, as I think it's better to allow the manager to have a full season than put him under pressure for sort of the last 7 games. And if those 7 games don't turn out well, then he's under a lot more pressure at the start of the following season. So now what I'm going to do is go through a list of managers that could replace Arne Slot, and this is going to be for the end of this season. And I'm going to start with the first one, which is Luis Enrique. This is unrealistic. It looks like Enrique is going to sign a contract with PSG, but I do wonder if you were to offer Enrique a contract, would he take the Liverpool job? I think there is a chance because there's so much quality in that Liverpool side, and I think he's the sort of manager that would like to go to the Premier League. In terms of the quality of the manager, he's an outstanding manager, is Luis Enrique. He's just won the Champions League with PSG. I would say he's at least a top 3 manager in the world, and he plays a very good style of football which would work at Liverpool with the players that Liverpool have. So I'm going to put Luis Enrique in A. He would be one of my top candidates. So then we've got the next manager, which is Pochettino. I like Pochettino as a manager. I think he's a very good manager that has a good style of football. But the overall problem with Pochettino is that inability to get it over the line. And I think at a club like Liverpool, you've got to prioritise getting it over the line. So for that reason, I'm going to put Pochettino in C. I wouldn't put him in D or E because I actually think he's a good manager. And if Liverpool did appoint Pochettino, I don't think it's the end of the world, but I think there are better candidates out there. So then we've got the next manager, which is Cesc Fabregas. He's done a great job at Como. He plays an attacking style of football, and I think he would suit a club like Liverpool as the manager. But what's putting me off appointing him is that sort of lack of experience at other sides. So I'm going to put Fabregas into D, purely based off the fact the manager is inexperienced. But if they did appoint someone like Fabregas, I still think that's someone you could get behind. So then we've got the next manager, and that is Andoni Iraola, similar to Fabregas, a manager that's done really well at sort of a smaller club. This time it's in the Premier League with Bournemouth, and I think I'm once again going to put Iraola in D. He's not my ideal candidate to replace Arne Slot. I think he's a decent option once again. If Liverpool got him, I think he's a manager you could get behind in terms of the style of football. But at points he has struggled with Bournemouth, going on sort of a 10-game run without a win, and you can't afford that at a club like Liverpool. Obviously you have more quality, but that is a little concern for me. I think an ideal step up for Andoni Iraola is Spurs if they survive in the summer, that sort of club, maybe a Newcastle. I think that would suit Andoni Iraola more than a Liverpool. I don't think he's quite ready for that step up yet. Then we've got Oliver Glasner, someone that's definitely leaving Crystal Palace in the summer, and I'm going to put Glasner straight in E. I just don't think the style of football works at Liverpool. He's a counter-attacking manager. I don't think this suits the squad or the fan base at all, and I just don't see this working at Anfield. I'm going to put Glasner into E. I think the only reasons you could give to potentially appointing him is the fact that he does play a 3 at the back, which could suit the squad if you buy a couple of centre-halves, and the fact that he has done well in the Premier League, but I wouldn't go anywhere near Glasner. Then we're on to the next manager, and this time it is Xabi Alonso, one of the favourites to get the job in the summer. In fact, I think he is the favourite, obviously a former Liverpool player, and he was a very good player for Liverpool. And what I like about Xabi Alonso is the fact that I think his system could really work well at Liverpool, because he's worked with Florian Wirtz previously at Leverkusen, and what you could do is you could switch that through at the back, use Wirtz as the left 10, Dominic Szoboszlai as the right 10, and then use Kerkez and Frimpong as the wing backs. And I think the other positions sort of pick themselves if you buy a centre-half. So I think the squad really suits his football. It's an attacking manager, and he does have a very good pressing structure. So he's definitely a manager I would be considering for this job. So for that reason, he's going to go at A. I think the only doubt around Alonso is maybe his 3 at the back not working. And if he was appointed, I would want to see him use the 3 at the back. If you're going to go get a 4 at the back manager, then I would go for an alternative option other than Alonso, because I think Alonso's proven it so far with the 3 at the back, not the 4. So then we've got the next manager, which is Enzo Maresca, who left Chelsea in January, and he did do a good job with Chelsea. The reason he left is because he disagreed with the ownership, which is completely understandable, because I don't think those Chelsea owners know anything about football, and it's proven in their results with that side. Would he be a good manager for Liverpool? Well, he plays good football, I think that's clear, but I think there are better candidates than Enzo Maresca, but I'm still going to put him in C because I do like Maresca as a manager, but I would prefer other options. I would say he's probably in the lowest sort of C tier. So then we've got a group of managers that I want to discuss as a 3, and that is Unai Emery, Inzaghi, and Diego Simeone. 3 of probably what you would say are the top 20 managers in the world, but this is going to surprise everyone. I'm going to put these 3 into D. And why? I just don't think the style of football works at a club like Liverpool. Liverpool have got to go out and dominate games, press high, and these managers don't really do this. Simeone does this at times in terms of the pressing. Emery can play some good football at times, but I think these 3 managers suit other clubs like an Atletico Madrid, like a Villa, like Inter Milan and Serie A, where Inzaghi was, because they don't have to dominate games, and I think that just suits them better. I don't think this works at Liverpool at all, and I wouldn't really be going near these candidates despite them being very good managers. So then we've got the next option, and that is Julian Nagelsmann. I really like Nagelsmann as a manager. He did a good job at Bayern Munich, and he shouldn't have been sacked because he had them top of league and they were cruising in all competitions. And he's also done a good job at Leipzig previously. I think the only concerns with Nagelsmann is what you've heard about the dressing room in the past in terms of controlling it. That's apparently why he was sacked at Bayern, but he has got a bit older now, and he does probably sort of understand how to control those dressing rooms better now. In terms of the style of football, it's very good. It's very attacking style, very pressing style, which works at Liverpool, I'm going to put Nagelsmann into B. He would be one of the candidates I would definitely consider. So then we're on to the next candidate, which is Roberto De Zerbi, and I think he's the sort of manager that does suit Liverpool in terms of he brings a very attacking style of football, a pressing style, and he's the sort of got that animation of a manager that has worked at Liverpool like a Jurgen Klopp. So I think he is worth considering for the job. Where am I concerned? Well, he hasn't really managed at a top club. He's managed at Marseille, but they haven't been one of the best French sides for a long time. And he managed at Brighton, so he hasn't really taken that step yet to managing at a top club. But I would still put De Zerbi in C because I think he could suit Liverpool. So then we're on to the final option, and this is Jurgen Klopp. Would this happen? Probably not, but it's still something worth discussing. And I think if you can get Jurgen Klopp back at Liverpool, it's immediately an A. And why? Well, he's a world-class manager, in my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinion. And he would definitely bring that connection back between the coaching, the players, and the fan base, which I think is important. And he's just a Liverpool legend at the end of the day. He'd bring a great style of football back to Liverpool, and I think he's a great option. I think the things that are worth considering is the amount of turnover in the squad that Liverpool have had recently, and I don't think his style of football would work as well, and this does apply to some of the other pressing managers like a Roberto De Zerbi, because so far one of the main concerns at Liverpool has been fitness, but I would trust someone like Klopp to sort this out. He would definitely be one of my top options. One other concern is that idea of never go back, but I think it's slightly different with Klopp, because I think if Klopp said I'm willing to come back, I think there's signs that he would do a great job, because the reason why he left at the end of the day was because he felt like he was running out of energy. He felt like he couldn't do the job anymore. If he said I'm willing to come back and I feel like I could do the job again, then I think you give him the job, because I would still say he's the best manager in this entire list. It would be between him and Luis Enrique. So that is the final tier list of my next Liverpool manager. And in the A's, we've got Jurgen Klopp, Enrique, and we've got Alonso. Realistically, I think Alonso's the one that's going to happen and probably the only realistic option in here. So I'm going to be picking Xabi Alonso as my next Liverpool option. If not that, I would like to see Nagelsmann as the next Liverpool manager. Let me know your thoughts on this tier list and this ranking. Would you sack Arne Slot as manager? And if you enjoy this video, go subscribe to the YouTube channel as well as liking the video.